Hello, BookTube. Well, it's Tuesday, and that means Tag Tuesday. It's unfortunately going to be another bean-free Tag Tuesday. She is, I don't know if you can see, she's wedged next to me. And that is her permanent spot now. Whether it's on the fainting couch or in the little book room, she is wedged next to me. She has no interest, almost no interest in being up on her window ledge when it's genuinely cold. And last couple of days it has been genuinely cold here. That is extremely rare. Boston is located squarely in the middle of the tropics, the new tropics, and so it never gets cold here. But not only has it been cold the last couple of days, but after a brief reprieve in the next couple of days, it's going to go back to being cold, even colder. So I'll do my best to put her on Instagram, but I don't think she's going to be in many videos up on her spot. But I was actually tagged twice in a new tag. So I figured I have a somewhat complicated connection with tags on BookTube nowadays, but if I'm tagged twice, I figure I'm in the clear to do it. I was tagged by Kelly at Books I'm Not Reading, who created the tag, and then I was tagged again by Joshua Crebo. So it's the Reading in the Dark tag, and it's I believe it was originally inspired by Kelly going through a power outage where she lives. And then Joshua, in his video, said that by singular luck of an incredibly charmed life, he has never been through a power outage of more than 5 or 10 minutes. That's just incredible to me. So I thought we'd go through these, first pausing for a commercial interruption. There we go. So prompt number 1 is, did you ever read under the covers with a flashlight as a kid? If so, do you have any memorable books or experiences? Please share them with us. I did not. For a couple of reasons. One reason is going to be a persistent bugaboo in the background of this tag, which is that I resolve images in much lower light than you do. So in most circumstances where there's any kind of ambient light at all, I don't need a flashlight. But the main reason for the specific prompt of this question is that I wouldn't have had any interest in doing it. I would have been with dogs instead, under the covers, nose to nose, talking about our days or whatnot. So no. Although I imagine it's fairly universal for most of you. I'd love to hear those stories. I'll be watching this tag. And prompt number 2 is, do you read when you wake up in the middle of the night as an adult? Do you use an e-reader, booklight, light on your nightstand, etc.? Please share any memorable books and or memorable experiences. The question presupposes that you sleep all night long. I know all of you do. You love it. It's the favorite part of any 24-hour period. The favorite part that you have of all that time is the part when you're unconscious, drooling on a pillow. I don't do that. So this business of waking up in the middle of the night to read, I read into the middle of the night and well beyond. And I can toe-hold my way onto the question, because usually there are installments to that reading. Lately, I have been overdosing on reading, so ordinarily I would say I'm going to start uninterrupted, pure reading at midnight. At midnight, I'm going to turn into a pumpkin, but lately I have been starting reading as soon as Frida's last dog walk is over and just reading straight in, so that by midnight I'm going strong. But there are installments in that, because the bean, when she is curled up on the bed next to me, for a while she is making herself comfortable and she is resurfacing to prop open an eye or cock an ear at random sounds or at my shifting or whatnot. Sometimes I talk to the book that I'm reading, and then that, for a while, that gets her attention. And often that reading is analog. It's a book that I just got at the Brattle. Because the rustling and the physicality and the sheer inconvenience of print and paper books is not going to bother her when she's at the open anteroom of sleep. But then after that, she starts to get much sleepier. Sleep starts to become much more of a hold on her. And then I tend to put the print and paper book away and pick up my blue e-reader. And just read on that for a while. And hours later after that, I can tell by the shifts of her body language, by the attitudes of her sleeping brain, that she doesn't want the light on anymore. It's not just a question of fumbling around with a book. She wants even less distraction. So that is when the light, the green shaded banker's lamp that I have next to the bed goes off. And then I've just got the light of the e-reader, which is wonderful. It's a godsend. So it does happen in stages, but it's not that I'm waking up in the middle of the night and reading. I didn't think you people did that. But anyway, let's see here. Prompt number 3 is power outage. What have your reading experiences been where the lights won't turn on, the TV is dead, the computer is out? Do you read then? Share any memorable books or reading experiences. And of course I do. Unlike Joshua, I have been through many power outages that lasted for a long, long time. And you do the usual things. Well, he doesn't know that they're usual, but you do the usual things. You hunt around, you break out the candles, you set them up. It's actually, at the beginning, not all that unpleasant. It's only once it goes on for a day or 2 days that it starts to become unpleasant, because food can't be refrigerated anymore. So you have to eat what isn't going to go bad. A lot of the conveniences of your home won't work anymore. Of course, if it's the winter, you've got other problems because you don't have heat. Occasionally, one time I was at an old friend's house in the Pacific Northwest when we had a power outage, and we had barely a speed bump in the evening or the next few days. We had barely a bump at all. He had rainwater caches all over the eaves of his house, so we had no problem. We had tons and tons of food, and no problem with it at all. He had cold larders down in the basement, so we didn't even need an electric refrigerator. He had a wine cellar, and he also had a roaring fireplace in the middle of the house and little fireplaces scattered throughout. So I guess maybe the TV was the only thing that didn't work. Usually it's not that convenient, but so I've done the usual thing. You break out the candles, you continue reading or writing, sometimes in my case. But this question reminded me of all the times in my life when there have been no electricity, none at all. It reminded me of it was that mention of when everything goes out. And that reminded me of all the times that I have read in my life when there were no electric lights anywhere around. I have hiked and camped an enormous amount in my life when there was nothing. There was nothing at all. There was a fire if I decided to make one, but otherwise no. And also, I have spent an enormous amount of time on the open oceans of this planet in a sailing vessel with no electricity. No battery, no generator, no GPS, no nothing like that. Where there was reading to be done then too. And in all of those cases, between hiking and sailing, in all of those cases, the books were a particularly durable cadre of rereaded favorites. They weren't anything new. So the reading experience had nothing to do with the lights being off, or there being no lights to be had. But the question reminded me of just how much reading I have done by natural light, far from electricity. Then prompt number 4 is reading ignorance. Did you ever read a book because you realized that you were completely in the dark about a particular subject or genre? What was the book and the experience like? And here I've been racking my brains because it's going to sound very snotty, but usually when I approach a book on a subject, I'm assuming this means mostly nonfiction, usually when I do that, I am not completely in the dark. I know something about the subject. I've encountered it somewhere in what is, by now, a fairly large reading experience. A reading experience that's been fairly deep and fairly broad. But every once in a while it does happen. Like, for instance, I read a couple of popular science books on quantum mechanics, on the quantum world. Spooky Atherton at a Distance, and a couple of other books where I had heard about these things, but famously, as Richard Feynman said, anybody who says they know about quantum physics doesn't know about quantum physics. I'd heard about these things, something happening at the subatomic level, and I'd heard how famously counterintuitive they are. But reading books like that introduced me to a lot of the details. Same thing with books on math, really on the sciences just in general. If I pick up a book on paleontology and it turns out to be a little bit more in-depth than the normal populist introduction to the subject, well, then I'm learning a lot. I don't know that even in those cases, though, I'm in the dark. I don't know what that would mean. I think the answer to this question might be no. And I wonder if it isn't no for all of you. But anyway, let's move on here. Prompt number 5 is reading blindly. Do you ever read a novel without knowing anything about it? You haven't read the back of the book or any reviews, you just jump in, name a book, and share your experience. Well, I do this all the time. I know that a lot of people who are going to answer this prompt will probably say, no, I read reviews on Goodreads, or I read the back of the book, or whatnot. But a huge number of the books that I read, not now, not at the present moment, but usually during the year, a huge number of the books that I read are in galley form. There aren't any reviews because no one's read the book. There's nothing on the back of the book. It's just an unbound galley. And when it comes to, did it mention novels? Yes, the prompt specifically mentions novels. And here, it's going to be almost impossible for me to come to a novel without knowing anything about it, unless it's a debut. I'm going to know something about it, because I'll almost certainly have some sort of experience with the author, or the genre, or the subject matter, or something like that. And I don't know how you would find a novel without knowing anything at all about it. But I do like to preserve that mind frame. Even if I do know something about a book, I like to check that knowledge completely at the door. So, yes, I've read 10 of this author's novels, and also his new novels about the Great Fire of San Francisco, and I know all about that subject. But no, I don't. No, I don't to any of that. It's a brand new author. It's a brand new subject. I'm all yours. I don't think you're being fair to a novel if you don't do that. So I try to do that with everything that I read. Some authors make it really difficult because they have an unbroken bad track record, but I try anyway. Otherwise, in addition to everything else, I'm wasting my time. And if, God forbid, I were to go into a novel fully guns bared, arms crossed, I know all about this, I barely need to read it. If, God forbid, after having done that, I then review it, then I would not only be wasting my own time, I'd be wasting my reader's time. So I try not to do it. I try to make a hard fire break there. Prompt number 6 is other dark places: camping, cars, basements, the movies. What are any other dark places you have read in, maybe unexpectedly? And I have read in innumerable cars. I don't know how to drive a car. I don't have a driver's license. Never sat behind the wheel of a car in my life. So I am only a passenger in cars. And I don't get car sick. And I have a lot of patience. So usually, if it's a long car ride and there's someone else keeping the driver occupied, I will do a lot of reading. Same thing is true on buses, for instance, where in the olden days you didn't have a light overhead. So you would either have a light clipped to your book or you would be out of luck. But again, buses would have running lights along the sides of the windows, along the sides of the floor, and that's enough light for me to read by. So there were lots and lots of instances like that where I was doing that. Also camping, as I mentioned, many times camping. But this question reminded me of a couple of places that I have read books that were perhaps unexpected. Certainly they seemed to be unexpected to all the people around me who saw me pull out a book. Like, for instance, I went to an open-air concert in Central Park in New York. A fairly famous open-air concert in Central Park, and I'm pretty sure that I was the only person in the crowd who pulled out a book to read. I'm pretty sure that's true. And I'd be willing to bet, some of you will be too young, you'll have to Google this, but there once was a den of sin called Studio 54. And I'm pretty sure I'm the only person who has ever tried to read a book in Studio 54. These places just aren't congenial for it, but try telling that to me when I started to get bored. But nothing more than that. I've never read on a space shuttle or anything like that. Then prompt number 7 is Epiphany. The lights are on. What book or books have given you a proverbial light bulb over your head, something that really illuminated an idea for you? This is if I'm doing my job right, this is a lot of books. I just, a couple of days ago, read an indie nonfiction work about human skin. Just I would say a popular science, but it got pretty detailed, and it was marvelously done. I never felt like I was in over my head, but thanks to the pedagogical skill of the author, I felt handled the whole time. But all about the intricacies of skin, how it works, how we take it for granted, the body's biggest organ, all sorts of stuff like that. It was just fascinating, and I would take skin for granted otherwise. And I like to think that happens all the time, whether it happens in popular science or hard science, or whether it happens even in, for instance, biography. You give me a biographical subject that I am fairly sure about, that I've made up my mind about, well, you could always convince me otherwise, especially if it's your goal to. You could convince me that I am interpreting things wrong. Same thing with, 20 years ago, I read a book on the weird random chance that there is such a vast amount of drinkable water trapped at Earth's surface, and how that has impacted everything about human civilization. That water is abundant on Earth's surface, and back then the book had a final chapter speculating on what would happen if that weren't true. And I believe the authors said something like, luckily we'll never have to face this problem, and now water all over the surface, bodies of water all over the surface of the Earth are receding. So we are going to face that problem. But that was utterly fascinating to me, is that book expanded into the role of drinking water. I mean, that drinking water is vital, but there are so many aspects to that story. Or just comparatively recent, just a few years ago, an author wrote a book called Planta Sapiens about whether or not plants have a kind of consciousness, utterly, profoundly alien to human consciousness naturally, since they don't have brains, they don't have a nervous system. But whether or not they do, whether or not they have even a rudimentary sense of selfhood or self-preservation, whether or not they communicate with each other, and how much they can communicate with each other, what degree of complexity. Oh my God, Planta Sapiens has been in my mind ever since. Every time I look at a plant now, I'm wondering if I accidentally, for instance, on Instagram, I accidentally see a picture, a little video of someone cutting a tree down on their property. The point of the video is to show me the funny thing that happens after a branch bounces and hits the guy with the saw or whatnot. But I tense up all over now when I look at those videos. Just up the hill, a neighbor who's a bit of a crackpot. He's a bit of a tin-plated dictator about his property. He's constantly fussing around it. I'm beautifying it, I think he thinks. I never go by his house without a silent prayer of thanks that I am not his tenant. But he had a big tree on the corner of his property that he just cut down the other day. Wasn't sick, wasn't tottering, wasn't impinging on anything. He just decided to kill it. That's all. And once upon a time, I would have brushed that off. But with Planta Sapiens, I'm thinking, once upon a time, I would have brushed it off to the extent of what the tree was thinking or feeling. I wouldn't have brushed it off. Trees are biomes for a lot of other people. You shouldn't cut them down. And I would have thought about that, but I wouldn't have thought about anything else. But thanks to that book, I did. Anyway, it happens all the time. It happens a lot. I try to remain open to it. And then prompt number 8 is to tag some people. This gets right to the heart of tags being a little bit odd for me these days, so I will just punt and say, consider yourself tagged. If you watch this and you think this is interesting, please do it. And I'll leave a link to Kelly's video and to Joshua's video down below. But there you go. I got to do a tag for Taz Tuesday. Probably my last tag of 2025. All about reading in the dark. How much fun is that? So I'll wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.